Welcome to a deep dive designed to cut through the noise and deliver the essential status report on psychedelic medicine.
Mm,
If you are following this sector, you know it hasn't just been growing. It has hit a massive inflection point.
a huge one.
And this moment, it's really defined by two contradictory narratives. You've got this monumental breakthrough data, but also a major, sobering regulatory setback that has just redefined the rules for everyone.
That's absolutely right. Our sources give us a really precise picture of where the FDA and clinical programs stand right here in early 2026.
Hmm.
And the key narrative has shifted. It's gone from feasibility to maturity.
Okay.
We're no longer talking about if these therapies will succeed, but when they will arrive, what they'll look like, and crucially, how they're going to be delivered.
So we'll be zeroing in on who is truly leading the race for approval, not just for the classic compounds, psilocybin and LSD, but also the cutting edge.
Fast-acting molecules, novel, non-hallucinogenic alternatives,
Yeah.
the whole field.
Our mission is simple: to unpack the progress, identify the specific data points that really matter, and understand what all these developments mean for the path to patient access for you and others following this space.
And to set the baseline, we have to recognize that while Compass Pathways got the first positive phase 3 results for psilocybin back in June 2025,
Which was a huge win.
a huge win. But that success is now measured against the shadow of the Lykos Therapeutics MDMA rejection. That failure raised the bar significantly.
And yet there's still a lot of momentum.
Oh, absolutely. As we speak, there are 7 compounds that hold the FDA's Breakthrough Therapy Designation, or BTD. It's a recognition that these drugs address a serious condition and might be a substantial improvement. It's a fast track, but that track is now very, very heavily scrutinized.
Okay, let's unpack that core context then.
Yeah.
The regulatory climate. This entire sector was just fundamentally shaken by that Lykos and MDMA
It
decision.
was.
This wasn't just a market correction, it was a clinical and regulatory learning moment that, well, it rewrote the playbook for everyone.
It really did. The setback happened back in August 2024. The FDA Advisory Committee voted 9-2 against approval for Lykos's MDMA-assisted therapy for PTSD.
9-2, that's a strong signal.
It is. But the real roadmap for the industry came a year later, in the September 2025 Complete Response Letter. And that document, it detailed 3 specific critical failures that the entire industry now knows it has to avoid.
So what were those 3 fatal flaws that led to the outright rejection?
Okay, so first, they cited inadequate adverse event collection during the very long dosing sessions.
Which is a fundamental safety concern.
A fundamental safety concern. Second, they found insufficient durability data. The FDA needs to know that these profound effects aren't just transient.
They need proof it lasts.
Exactly. Proof that the clinical benefits last for many months.
And the third point, this is the one that really gets at the unique challenge of psychedelics, was the issue of blinding and expectancy bias.
Exactly. They found high rates of prior MDMA use among the participants. And that led to a huge expectancy bias, which is really the nemesis of a good clinical trial.
Right. It's hard to have a blind study when one group knows for sure they got the active drug.
It's incredibly difficult. And this issue of expectancy bias, where participants who know they got the drug just expect to get better, and so they do, that's now the prime obstacle for all classic psychedelics.
So if the advisory committee votes 9-2 against you, and the official letter details 3 major flaws, what was the fallout for Lykos?
It was brutal. The company had to rebrand as Resilient Pharmaceuticals. They cut staff by 75%.
Wow.
And the immediate result industry-wide was this necessary pivot toward extreme rigor. Better blinding, deeper focus on safety, and crucially long-term durability metrics. That level of scrutiny is now permanent.
That sounds like a disaster for the momentum of the sector, and yet just as the industry was catching its breath, we saw a major regulatory pivot that could actually accelerate things for the successful companies.
This is where the story gets really interesting. In December 2025, the FDA Commissioner Marty Makary indicated the agency plans to allow just one successful pivotal trial for new drug applications.
Instead of the traditional 2.
Instead of the traditional 2.
Now, for you, the listener, let's just pause and appreciate the gravity of that. That's a huge deal.
It's an earthquake. The traditional pathway requires 2 successful phase 3 trials. That second trial adds, 18 to 24 months and hundreds of millions of dollars to the cost.
So if the FDA shifts this policy...
If they do, and Makary said it could happen within 3 to 6 months, It would dramatically accelerate the timeline for companies like Compass and Usona. It could save them 2 years and get them to an FDA decision much, much sooner.
It just changes the entire financial calculus. But before we get deeper into the classics, let's just ground ourselves in the one success story that proves this all works.
Right, we can't forget the baseline. Ketamine. Spravato, the esketamine nasal spray, got expanded FDA approval as a monotherapy for treatment-resistant depression back in January 2025.
And that's an established product.
It's established, it's short-acting, and it continues to prove the principle that rapid-acting psychiatric treatment is viable, it's validated, and it's reimbursable. It really set the stage for everything that followed.
Okay, let's unpack this with the two frontrunners everyone's tracking, psilocybin and LSD. We have to start with Compass Pathways and their psilocybin compound, COMP360. They were the ones who managed to meet that new, brutal regulatory standard.
Compass's triumph in June 2025 really can't be overstated. Their CMP-005 trial focused on treatment-resistant depression, or TRD.
Meaning patients who have failed at least 2 prior treatments.
Exactly. That trial delivered the first positive pivotal result for any classic psychedelic. It established the foundational proof of concept for the whole class of compounds.
So what was the data nugget that got them over the finish line? What's the metric that mattered?
The key metric is the MADRS score, the Montgomery-Åsberg Depression Rating Scale. It's a 60-point scale measuring depression severity. They showed a statistically significant 3.6-point MADRS reduction versus placebo at week 6.
With a p-value of less than 0.001.
Correct.
Now, a 3.6-point reduction might sound small to an outsider. Why is that considered so compelling for these TRD patients?
It is hugely compelling because these are the most difficult to treat patients. A single point of reduction in this population is hard to achieve.
So for comparison,
Well, many legacy antidepressants in the general population show maybe 2 to 4 points of improvement. Achieving a 3.6-point delta in TRD patients with a single dose of COMP360 is just incredibly robust data.
it confirms the mechanism works, even in the toughest cohort.
It really does.
And the strength of that data has direct commercial implications. We're talking about timeline acceleration, especially with that potential single trial pathway we just discussed.
Absolutely. The data was so strong that Compass is now exploring a rolling NDA submission.
Which lets them submit sections of the application as they go.
Right, and that could bring an FDA decision into late 2026 or early 2027. It accelerates their launch plans by, say, 9 to 12 months. They're also expanding aggressively into PTSD, with Phase 2 data showing a remarkable 81.8% response rate.
But Compass isn't the only psilocybin play. There's also Cybin, which just shifted its focus, and the nonprofit work from Usona.
Yes, Helus Pharma, they rebranded from Cybin in January 2026, has exceptional durability data for their compound, CYB003. Their Phase 2 results showed 71% remission sustained through a full 12 months for major depressive disorder.
12 months, that's the goal, right? A lasting effect.
That is the ultimate goal. We're expecting their Phase 3 data in Q4 2026.
And Usona is keeping the nonprofit road viable.
Yes, their U.S. buyer trial is essential. It gives academic and VA medical centers access. Their Phase 2 data, published in JAMA, was very strong, 42% sustained response versus just 11% for placebo.
Okay, let's move to LSD. This is where the logistical advantage really comes into sharp focus. MindMed has positioned MM120 as the clear leader for generalized anxiety disorder, or GAD.
What's fascinating here is the sheer power and potential viability of a single dose. MindMed's Phase 2b data showed a single 100 microgram dose produced a 7.6-point HMA reduction versus placebo.
A huge effect.
A huge effect. Yeah. And here's the most important strategic detail. 65% of patients achieved a clinical response at week 12, and this was done without mandated psychotherapy.
Okay, so that's a massive logistical advantage over the psilocybin models.
Massive. The psilocybin trials require highly specialized therapists for these multi-hour sessions. It's extremely expensive and difficult to scale. MindMed is essentially saying the drug is the primary driver of the effect.
But wait, if you remove the mandated psychotherapy, aren't you risking the exact same blinding and expectancy issues that Lykos got burned on?
That is the critical question.
Aren't you just opening yourself up to criticism that people felt better because they knew they tripped?
And that's what differentiates the Lykos failure from the MindMed strategy. MindMed is leaning into the data, betting the drug effect is so overwhelming and reproducible that the psychological support can be minimized. They're betting the long-term sustained relief will prove the drug's pharmacological effect is dominant.
Which would address a lot of friction with payers, with insurance.
Exactly. If they can successfully argue to the FDA that this is a drug that only needs standard physician monitoring, not hours of specialized therapy. The infrastructure barrier just disappears.
Changes the entire commercial model.
It does. And MindMed is going all in on this. They raised a massive $258.9 million in October 2025. They have 4 phase 3 trials underway or planned.
And we're expecting readouts soon.
Very soon. They're calling 2026 their most significant year. We're expecting data from 2 GD trials, Voyage and Panorama, in the first and second half of this year. Their success or failure here will really determine if psychotherapy remains mandatory for all classic psychedelics.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because companies are trying to solve that huge logistical puzzle, shortening the session time, or just eliminating the trip entirely.
Right.
These long, multi-hour in-clinic sessions are the single biggest barrier to mass adoption and reimbursement.
And the shift to fast-acting tryptamines like 5-MeO-DMT is a direct response to that challenge. If you can get the profound clinical benefit of a psychedelic experience but condense the entire session into, say, a lunch break, we revolutionize patient throughput.
Let's look at the inhaled compounds, specifically GH Research's G8001 for TRD. Talk about speed.
G8001 is the front runner here. The data is stunning.
Yeah.
The median psychoactive experience lasts just 11 minutes.
11 minutes.
And critically, from a clinical standpoint, 97.4% of patients are discharge ready within 1 hour. Their phase 2b results showed a significant 15.5-point placebo-adjusted MADRS reduction at day 8. That's an unprecedented clinical turnaround.
The speed is incredible, but if the experience is only 11 minutes, how do clinicians even structure the integration phase? That seems like a massive clinical challenge, not just a logistical win.
It is the ultimate clinical challenge. The traditional model relies on hours of guided support for integration. With 5-MeO-DMT, the peak happens so fast that integration has to happen after the patient leaves the clinic.
Or in a very quick debrief.
Exactly. It forces a complete rethink of the protocol. You move away from in-session therapy to follow-up support.
We also saw Ade Beckley's BPL-003 moving quickly in this space.
Yes, their intranasal 5-MeO-DMT also got DTD in October 2025. It showed a 12.1-point MeO dose reduction. The data is consistent. And if you want something in the middle, Cybin's CYB004 and intramuscular DMT offers an experience lasting 55 to 120 minutes.
So a bit longer, but not the full 6-hour psilocybin commitment.
Precisely.
Now, let's pivot back to that Lykos MDMA failure. That rejection opened a massive validated lane for alternatives, specifically methylone.
The Lykos failure was a gift to Transcend Therapeutics' TSND-201. This methylone compound for PTSD received BTD in July 2025, and its 2 key advantages directly address the Lykos pitfalls.
What are they?
First, it is non-hallucinogenic, and second, it requires no wraparound psychotherapy in its current trial design.
That combination is a game changer. No trip, no costly specialized therapists.
Exactly. What propelled them forward was the core data. They used the CFPS-5 scale for PTSD. Their phase 2 showed a 9.64-point placebo-adjusted reduction, and critically, 60.7% of patients achieved a loss of PTSD diagnosis entirely.
So they're planning phase 3 for this year.
They are. This compound is positioning itself as a clean, rapid alternative to the complicated MDMA model. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is where the pharmaceutical world truly validates the sector. It confirms these aren't niche curiosities anymore.
Right. These are genuine commercial targets. And the biggest validation event of the past year was that $1.2 billion acquisition. Big Pharma has planted its flag.
The landmark acquisition of Gilgamesh Pharma's Bretisolocin by AbbVie. That signals absolute confidence. AbbVie paid over $1 billion for a short-acting tryptamine 1 designed for a 2-hour in-clinic session. This is Big Pharma de-risking the entire sector.
But the real game changer, the future, seems to be the non-hallucinogenic psychoplastogen space. If you can get the neuroplasticity benefit without the trip, you solve almost all the headaches at once.
Delix Therapeutics' DLX-001, or zalsupindol, leads this class. This is where we see true scalability. Their Phase 1b data showed a significant 12-point MADRS drop with daily or twice-weekly dosing, entirely without psychedelic effects.
So it's like a traditional pill for depression, but with the rapid effect of a psychedelic.
Precisely. And the most exciting part is the logistical outcome. The FDA has cleared a Phase 2 design featuring at-home administration.
At home?
At-home administration. This is a fundamentally different delivery model. It opens the door for massive volume, traditional pharmacy dispensing, and standard insurance reimbursement.
And that at-home concept is also driving innovation, with ketamine moving beyond the nasal spray model.
Yes. Tasman Therapeutics R107 is an oral extended-release ketamine designed for at-home self-administration.
What was the data there?
Their phase 2 data showed a 73% response rate with great tolerability and minimal dissociation. By making it oral and extended release, they're targeting a model where you take the medication at home, maybe with remote supervision. They started phase 3 in the second half of 2025.
Finally, just a brief note on ibogaine, which is gaining traction through state-level funding, sort of bypassing the typical federal route.
Correct. We've seen Texas put up $50 million and Arizona add $5 million, specifically for trials targeting PTSD, addiction, and TBI. It highlights a non-federal pathway, really focused on military and veteran populations. So if we connect all this to the bigger picture, 2026 is truly a decisive year. The pipeline is mature, the data is strong, but the scrutiny around delivery and commercial viability is higher than ever.
Thanks to the lessons from Lykos. So let's summarize the critical phase 3 readouts we need to be watching over the next 12 months. These are the moments that will shape the market.
The heavy hitters are all focused on GAD and MDD. In the first half of 2026, we expect the MindMed Voyage phase 3 readout for generalized anxiety disorder.
And that will tell us if the single-dose, no-therapy model really holds up.
It will. Then, mid-2026 brings the MindMed Emerge phase 3 readout for major depressive disorder.
And then to round out the year.
Toward the end of the year, Q4 2026, we'll see the Cybin Approach phase 3 top-line data for MDD. These results will really cement the leadership positions for LSD and psilocybin.
That's a huge wave of potential approvals coming. So what's the synthesis here for you, the listener?
I think the conclusion is unambiguous. Compass's success established robust proof of concept for psilocybin. The Lykos rejection, while painful, enforced necessary rigor. And finally, the sheer breadth of compounds, from classics to fast-acting tryptamines to novel psychoplastogens, it means that multiple therapeutic options will reach patients in the next few years. The question is no longer if, it's which model will dominate.
So what does this all mean for someone following this space? Where does the uncertainty lie now that the data is getting so strong?
This raises the most important question. We have major pharma validation, we have incredible data, but the ultimate unknowns are all logistical. Will the FDA enforce steep requirements for psychotherapy-assisted models, making them expensive and hard to scale?
And if they do, how will insurance cover it?
Right. How will insurance providers cover them, given the high cost? The drugs are coming, but the patient delivery model, how you actually get the treatment, that is still very much being negotiated.
So your final thoughts to mull over, based on this deep dive. If a fast-acting compound like GH001 can provide profound benefit in an 11-minute session, but a full-spectrum psychedelic requires 6 hours of intense therapy, how will clinicians and insurance payers value the difference? Will time or depth be the ultimate currency in this new era of mental health treatment? Something to explore on your own.